Never trust someone who smiles while destroying your life. My mother-in-law stole my wedding jewelry, and when I caught her, she said I deserved it. So let me take you back to where this nightmare started. 3 years ago, I married the love of my life, Daniel. The wedding was beautiful, everything I dreamed of. My parents, immigrants who came to this country with nothing, saved for years to give me a traditional ceremony. The jewelry they gave me wasn't just expensive. It was priceless. My grandmother's gold necklace from India, handed down through 4 generations. Earrings my mother wore on her wedding day. Bangles that survived a journey across oceans and decades of hardship. These pieces represented sacrifice, love, and our family's entire history. Daniel and I moved into a house just 10 minutes from his parents. His mother, Patricia, seemed sweet at first. She baked cookies, offered decorating advice, and called me honey. I thought I was lucky. I thought I had a second mom. But I was wrong. So wrong. The first sign came 2 months after the wedding. Patricia started dropping by unannounced. Not to visit, to inspect. She would run her finger along shelves checking for dust. She would rearrange my kitchen cabinets while I was at work. She criticized how I folded Daniel's shirts, how I cooked his meals, how I organized our home. Daniel noticed but brushed it off. That's just how she is, he would say. She means well. I wanted to believe him. I wanted peace. So I stayed quiet even as the visits increased and the criticism got sharper. 6 months into our marriage, Patricia got a key to our house. Daniel gave it to her without asking me. For emergencies, he explained. I felt uneasy, but again I stayed quiet. I was raised to respect elders, to avoid conflict, to keep families together. My mother always taught me that a good wife builds bridges, not walls. So I swallowed my discomfort and tried harder to please Patricia. Then came the jewelry incident that changed everything. I kept my wedding jewelry in a carved wooden box in our bedroom closet. It was a special box my father made by hand, with intricate designs and a small lock. I wore the pieces on special occasions. Diwali celebrations, date nights, family gatherings. Each time I opened that box, I felt connected to my roots, to the strong women who came before me. One Saturday morning, Daniel and I were planning to attend his cousin's wedding. I went to the closet to get my jewelry and found the box open. Completely empty. My heart stopped. I checked every corner of the closet, tore through drawers, searched under the bed. Nothing. I ran downstairs and asked Daniel if he moved it. He looked confused. He had no idea what I was talking about. We searched the entire house for 3 hours. Every room, every drawer, every possible hiding spot. The jewelry was gone. Called the police. They came, took a report, and said it looked like someone with access to the house took the items since there were no signs of forced entry. My mind immediately went to Patricia's key. But I pushed the thought away. She wouldn't. She couldn't. Right. The next few days were torture. I couldn't eat or sleep. I cried until I had no tears left. Those pieces weren't just valuable. They were irreplaceable. They held memories I could never get back. My mother was devastated when I told her. She wept on the phone, not for the monetary value, but for the lost connection to my grandmother, to our heritage. A week later, we went to Patricia's house for Sunday dinner. I wasn't in the mood, but Daniel insisted. We need to keep things normal, he said. As we sat at the dining table, something caught my eye. Patricia was wearing a necklace I had never seen before. A beautiful gold piece with intricate work. Something about it looked familiar. My stomach dropped. After dinner, I asked to use the bathroom. Instead, I went to Patricia's bedroom. I know it was wrong to snoop, but something was pulling me. I opened her jewelry box and froze. There, sitting among her other pieces, was my grandmother's necklace. The earrings my mother wore on her wedding day. The bangles that traveled across continents. My wedding jewelry. All of it. In her jewelry box. My hands shook as I picked up the necklace. There was no mistake. It had a tiny dent on the clasp from when my grandmother dropped it decades ago. It was definitely mine. I felt rage like I had never experienced. My vision blurred. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. I walked back to the dining room holding the necklace. Daniel and Patricia were chatting about something. I stood at the doorway and held up the necklace. "Daniel," I said quietly, "look what I found in your mother's bedroom." His face went pale. Patricia looked up and for a split second, I saw panic in her eyes. But then her expression changed. She smiled. That same sweet smile she always wore. And she said the words that still haunt me. "Oh honey, I was keeping those safe for you. You're so careless with valuable things. I didn't want them to get stolen." I stood there stunned. The audacity. The shameless lie. I told her I checked her jewelry box, not a safe. I found my pieces mixed with hers. She wasn't keeping them safe. She was keeping them for herself. Her smile faded. Her eyes turned cold. The mask slipped completely. "Well," she said slowly, "maybe I thought they would look better on someone who actually appreciates quality. Your people don't really understand fine jewelry anyway. Your people." Those two words hung in the air like poison. Daniel's jaw dropped. I felt like I had been slapped. For a moment no one spoke. The silence was suffocating. Then Patricia continued, her voice rising. "You walk into my son's life and expect everything handed to you. You don't cook his favorite meals. You don't keep the house the way he likes. You don't dress appropriately. You don't go to church with us. You've turned him against his own family. Maybe if you spent less time crying about some old jewelry and more time being a proper wife, we wouldn't have these problems." I couldn't breathe. Every word was a dagger. But what hurt more was Daniel's silence. He sat there frozen, saying nothing. Not defending me. Not stopping his mother. Just sitting there like a statue. I grabbed the necklace from the table and walked to her bedroom. I took every single piece of my jewelry from her box. She followed me, yelling about boundaries and respect. I ignored her. When I had everything, I turned to Daniel and told him we were leaving. He finally stood up, mumbled an apology to his mother, and followed me to the car. The drive home was silent. I was shaking with anger and hurt. When we got inside, I exploded. I asked Daniel why he didn't defend me. Why he let his mother talk to me that way. Why he gave her a key without asking. Why he always took her side. He said he was in shock. He didn't know what to say. He claimed he would talk to her. But talking wasn't enough. His mother stole from us. She violated our privacy. She made racist comments. And his response was to talk to her. I told him she needed to return the house key immediately and apologize. He agreed. He called her that night. I could hear her yelling through the phone. She refused to apologize. She said I owed her an apology for snooping and causing a scene. Daniel, to his credit, demanded the key back. She hung up on him. The next day, I went to work exhausted and emotionally drained. I work as a nurse at a local hospital. My job requires focus and compassion. But I couldn't concentrate. My mind kept replaying the scene at Patricia's house. During my lunch break, I called my mother. I told her everything. She was horrified. She wanted to confront Patricia herself, but I begged her not to. I didn't want to escalate things further. When I got home that evening, Daniel was sitting on the couch looking defeated. His mother had called him multiple times. She was playing the victim, telling relatives that I disrespected her in her own home, that I accused her of stealing, that I was trying to turn Daniel against his family. The lies were spreading through his entire family like wildfire. Daniel's phone kept buzzing with messages from aunts, uncles, and cousins. Some were checking if everything was okay. Others were accusing me outright. One of his aunts sent a long message about how younger generations don't respect their elders anymore. Another uncle suggested that maybe I misplaced the jewelry and was too proud to admit it. Nobody asked for my side of the story. Nobody questioned Patricia's version. They just believed her. Felt so alone. In my culture, family is everything. We resolve conflicts together. We support each other. But Daniel's family wasn't supporting us. They were attacking me based on lies. I asked Daniel to tell them the truth. To defend me to his relatives. He said he would, but I could see the hesitation in his eyes. He was torn between his wife and his mother, and I was losing that battle. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every interaction with Patricia. All the subtle digs, the criticism disguised as help. The way she touched Daniel's arm a little too long. The way she talked about his ex-girlfriend Sarah, mentioning how Sarah made such good pot roast, how Sarah dressed so elegantly, how Sarah's family was so established in the community. I realized this wasn't just about jewelry. This was about control. Patricia never wanted Daniel to marry me. She tolerated me at first, hoping I would fail. When I didn't, she decided to push me out. The next morning I woke up determined. I wasn't going to be bullied out of my own marriage. I took pictures of all my jewelry pieces, including close-ups of the distinctive dent on the necklace clasp and the unique engraving on the bangles. I wrote down a detailed timeline of everything that happened. I called the police and updated them that we found the stolen items. They asked if we wanted to press charges. I hesitated. Pressing charges against my mother-in-law would destroy Daniel's family. But not pressing charges meant Patricia got away with theft. I told the officer I needed time to think. He understood and gave me his card. After hanging up, I showed Daniel everything. The pictures, the timeline, the option to press charges. He looked sick. He begged me not to involve the police. He promised he would handle his mother. Gave him 1 week. 1 week to get a real apology, to get our key back, and to make Patricia admit what she did to his family. Daniel tried. He really did. He went to his mother's house alone the next day. He was there for 3 hours. When he came home, he looked crushed. Patricia refused to apologize. She insisted she was protecting the jewelry. She claimed I was being dramatic and ungrateful. She said if Daniel sided with me over her, she would have a heart attack from the stress. She weaponized her health to manipulate him. And it worked. He came home asking me to let it go for her sake. I felt betrayed all over again. Letting it go meant accepting disrespect. It meant allowing theft. It meant teaching Patricia that she could do anything without consequences. I refused. I told Daniel that if he wasn't willing to stand up to his mother, then maybe we needed marriage counseling. He was shocked. He didn't think it was that serious. That's when I knew we had a deeper problem. He didn't see his mother's behavior as abusive. He normalized it because he grew up with it. I found a marriage counselor who could see us that week. Daniel reluctantly agreed. Our first session was eye-opening. The counselor asked Daniel to describe his relationship with his mother. He talked about how she was always there for him growing up. How she sacrificed so much after his father died when Daniel was 12. How she worked 2 jobs to support him. How she never remarried because she wanted to focus on raising him. I understood then why he struggled to confront her. Guilt. He felt like he owed her everything. But the counselor pointed out something important. Gratitude doesn't mean accepting bad behavior. Love doesn't mean allowing boundary violations. Being a good son doesn't mean choosing his mother over his wife in every situation. Daniel needed to hear this from someone neutral. I saw something shift in his eyes during that session. He started to understand. Over the next few weeks, we continued counseling. Daniel began to see patterns he never noticed before. How his mother guilt tripped him constantly. How she made every disagreement about her health or her sacrifices. How she expected to be the most important woman in his life even after he got married. It wasn't easy for him to accept these truths. He felt like acknowledging his mother's flaws meant being ungrateful for everything she did. Meanwhile, Patricia escalated her campaign against me. She started posting vague messages on social media about ungrateful people and snakes in the family. Daniel's relatives saw these posts and some reached out asking what happened. Patricia told them I stole jewelry from her and accused her of theft to cover my own crime. The story was completely twisted. I was now the villain. I started receiving nasty messages from people I barely knew. One of Daniel's cousins called me a liar and a thief. An aunt blocked me on social media. Daniel's childhood friend sent him a message saying he could do better. The emotional toll was crushing. Cried every day. I lost weight. My coworkers noticed something was wrong. My manager pulled me aside and asked if I needed time off. Said no. Work was my escape. It was the only place where I wasn't thinking about Patricia and her lies. My own family rallied around me. My parents wanted to confront Patricia directly. My brother offered to get the police involved. My aunt suggested I leave Daniel if he wasn't going to defend me. But I loved Daniel. Despite everything, I believed we could get through this if he truly chose our marriage over his mother's manipulation. One night, about a month after the jewelry incident, Daniel and I had a breakthrough conversation. He admitted he was scared. Scared of losing his mother. Scared of the family falling apart. Scared of being seen as a bad son. I understood his fear, but I reminded him that his mother made choices that led to this situation. She stole from us. She lied. She tried to destroy my reputation. Those were her choices, not ours. I asked Daniel what kind of marriage he wanted. One where his mother had unlimited access and control. Or one where we were a team, setting boundaries and building our own family. He said he wanted the latter. Then prove it, I told him. Actions, not words. The next day, Daniel did something that shocked me. He posted on social media. He wrote a clear, direct message stating that there had been misunderstandings and miscommunications in our family. He said that going forward, he and I would be taking space from extended family drama to focus on our marriage. He didn't call his mother out directly, but the message was clear. He was choosing us. Patricia lost it. She called him sobbing. She accused him of abandoning her. She brought up his father's death, her sacrifices, everything she could think of to make him feel guilty. Daniel stayed firm. He told her he loved her but needed space. She hung up and blocked him on social media. Daniel's family split into two camps. Some understood and respected our need for space. Others sided with Patricia completely. Daniel lost relationships with people he had known his entire life. It was painful to watch. But he didn't waver. He kept going to counseling. He kept prioritizing our marriage. I saw the man I fell in love with again. For 3 months we had no contact with Patricia. It was peaceful but also sad. Daniel missed his mother despite everything. He talked about good memories from his childhood. I encouraged him to remember the good while also maintaining boundaries. Our counselor helped us draft a letter to Patricia outlining what needed to change if she wanted a relationship with us. The letter was respectful but firm. We acknowledged her sacrifices and expressed love. But we also stated clear boundaries. No unannounced visits. No key to our house. No disrespectful comments about my culture or family. No spreading lies to relatives. A genuine apology for stealing the jewelry. And family therapy together if she wanted to rebuild trust. Daniel mailed the letter. We waited. 1 week passed. 2 weeks. 3 weeks. No response. I told Daniel we might need to accept that she wasn't willing to change. He looked heartbroken but nodded. We started to build a life without her. We made new friends. We focused on our careers. We talked about starting our own family someday. Then, 4 months after the jewelry incident, Daniel's phone rang. It was Patricia. He put it on speaker so I could hear. Her voice was small, defeated. She said she read the letter many times. She went to therapy herself. She realized she had been controlling and disrespectful. She said losing Daniel was the wake-up call she needed. She asked if we could meet to talk. Daniel looked at me. I could see hope and fear in his eyes. I told him the decision was his, but I would support whatever he chose. He told his mother we would meet in a neutral place with our counselor present. She agreed. The meeting was tense. Patricia looked older, tired. She sat across from us in the counselor's office and cried. She apologized for taking the jewelry. She said she felt like she was losing Daniel and acted out of fear and jealousy. She admitted she resented me for taking her son away. She confessed she made racist comments and spread lies. She said she was wrong. I watched her carefully. Was this genuine remorse or manipulation? Our counselor asked Patricia what she would do differently going forward. She outlined specific changes: respecting our privacy, calling before visiting, getting to know me as a person instead of seeing me as competition, attending family therapy with us, publicly correcting the lies she spread. Sounded good, but I needed to see action, not just words. I told Patricia that rebuilding trust would take time. She nodded and said she understood. Daniel was crying. He hugged his mother. I stayed seated, guarded but open to the possibility of reconciliation. Over the next year, Patricia slowly proved she meant what she said. She started with small things: texting before coming over, bringing food without criticizing how I cooked, asking about my family and culture with genuine interest. She posted on social media clarifying that previous family drama was based on misunderstandings and that she was working on being a better mother-in-law. Some relatives apologized to me. Others stayed distant. I accepted both. Patricia and I attended family therapy together. It was uncomfortable at first. She struggled to hear how her actions affected me. But she kept showing up. She kept trying. She even learned to cook a few dishes from my culture and surprised me on my birthday. It was a small gesture, but it meant the world. It showed effort. Daniel blossomed during this time. He became more confident in setting boundaries, not just with his mother but in all areas of life. Our marriage grew stronger. We laughed more. We dreamed together. We talked about buying a bigger house and having kids someday. 2 years after the jewelry incident, Patricia threw me a surprise Diwali party. She decorated her house with traditional lamps and rangoli patterns. She invited my family and some of our friends. She wore a sari my mother helped her pick out. She gave a speech about how grateful she was to have me in the family and how much she had learned from me about love, forgiveness, and strength. Cried. My mother cried. Daniel cried. It was a moment of true healing. Today, my relationship with Patricia isn't perfect. We still have disagreements. She still occasionally oversteps and I have to remind her of boundaries. But there's mutual respect now. She sees me as Daniel's partner, not his mother's competition. She values my culture instead of dismissing it. She earned back our trust through consistent action over years. The wedding jewelry sits in my closet again, in the same carved wooden box my father made. But I added a small combination lock this time. Not because I don't trust Patricia anymore, but because I learned that protecting what's valuable isn't being paranoid. It's being wise. This experience taught me so much about family, boundaries, and marriage. I learned that staying quiet to keep peace isn't peace at all. It's just delayed conflict. I learned that love without boundaries becomes control. I learned that real apologies come with changed behavior, not just words. I learned that choosing your spouse doesn't mean abandoning your parents, but it does mean prioritizing your marriage. I also learned about cultural clashes in mixed families. Patricia grew up in a small town where everyone looked the same, believed the same things, and lived the same way. My culture was foreign and threatening to her. Instead of getting curious, she got defensive. It took her losing her son to realize that different doesn't mean wrong. That's a lesson more people need to learn in this diverse world. For anyone dealing with difficult in-laws, here's what I wish someone told me earlier. First, address problems early before they become massive. I stayed quiet for too long, allowing Patricia to push boundaries repeatedly. By the time I spoke up, resentment had built walls between us. If I had gently but firmly set boundaries from the beginning, we might have avoided the whole jewelry disaster. Second, your spouse needs to be on your team. Daniel's initial silence hurt worse than Patricia's actions. A united front is essential. If your partner won't stand with you against family dysfunction, counseling isn't optional. It's necessary. You can't build a healthy marriage on a foundation of divided loyalty. Third, documentation matters. Taking pictures of my jewelry and writing down timelines gave me clarity and evidence. When Patricia tried to twist the story, I had facts to counter her lies. Keep records of important conversations, incidents, and patterns. It's not about being paranoid. It's about protecting yourself from gaslighting. Fourth, give people room to change but don't be naive. Patricia's first apology wasn't genuine. Took consequences, therapy, and time for real change to happen. If I had accepted her initial half-hearted sorry, nothing would have improved. Demand accountability and watch behavior over time. Anyone can say sorry. Few people actually change. Fifth, protect your mental health. The stress from this situation affected my physical health, my work, and my well-being. I should have started individual therapy sooner. I should have leaned on friends more. I should have taken time off when my manager offered. You can't pour from an empty cup. Taking care of yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. Sixth, understand that not all family relationships can be saved. Some people aren't willing to change. Some situations are too toxic. If Patricia had refused therapy and continued her behavior, I would have supported Daniel going no contact. Sometimes the healthiest choice is distance. That's okay. You're not obligated to maintain relationships with people who harm you, even if they're family. Seventh, cultural sensitivity matters. Mixed culture families face unique challenges. Both sides need to approach differences with curiosity and respect, not judgment. Patricia's "your people" comment revealed deep-seated prejudice she didn't even recognize in herself. Education and exposure helped her grow, but it required willingness. If someone is committed to bigotry, no amount of patience will change them. 8. Social media can be a weapon. Patricia used it to spread lies and turn people against me. Be careful what you post during family conflicts. Consider going private or taking a break from social media entirely. Don't engage in online battles. They never end well. 9th, theft is theft regardless of relationship. I struggled with whether to press charges because Patricia was family. But taking something without permission is stealing. If someone violates your trust that severely, involving authorities is valid. I chose not to in the end, but I don't judge anyone who makes a different choice. Protect yourself and your property. 10th, forgiveness is personal and takes time. People pressured me to forgive Patricia quickly to keep family peace. But forgiveness isn't something you can rush or force. It's a process that happens as trust is rebuilt. Some people in my life think I forgave too easily. Others think I held a grudge too long. The truth is, only I could decide what forgiveness looked like for me in this situation. Looking back now, 3 years later, I'm grateful for what this experience taught me, even though I wish I hadn't gone through it. I'm stronger. My marriage is stronger. I have clearer boundaries in all my relationships. I value my culture and heritage even more deeply. I don't take family for granted, whether that's my birth family who supported me unconditionally or my extended family with Patricia who had to be rebuilt from scratch. Daniel and I are expecting our first child next month. Little girl. We've had long conversations about how to raise her with influences from both our cultures. Patricia is excited to be a grandmother. She's already taking her role seriously, asking us what boundaries we want her to respect, reading books about being a good grandparent, and even learning some children's songs in my language. My mother is also thrilled. She's planning to stay with us for a few months after the baby is born to help, as is customary in our culture. Patricia initially felt threatened by this, but we talked it through in family therapy. She understands now that my mother's presence isn't about pushing her out. It's about honoring our traditions while also creating new ones together. We're planning to pass down the wedding jewelry to our daughter someday. The necklace, earrings, and bangles that survived theft, lies, and family upheaval will be hers. But more importantly, we'll pass down the lessons. Stand up for yourself. Choose your partner. Set boundaries. Demand respect. Value your heritage. And give people room to grow while protecting your peace. The carved wooden box my father made will hold these treasures until our daughter is old enough to understand their significance. When that day comes, I'll tell her this story. Not to make her fear her grandmother or distrust family, but to teach her that relationships require work, respect, and accountability. That forgiveness is possible but not automatic. That love means sometimes having difficult conversations and making hard choices. I'll tell her about the night I found my jewelry missing and the devastation I felt. I'll tell her about discovering the pieces in Patricia's jewelry box and the confrontation that followed. I'll tell her about the racist comments, the lies, and the family division. But I'll also tell her about the therapy, the slow rebuilding of trust, and the Diwali party 2 years later. I'll tell her that people can change if they truly want to. Most importantly, I'll tell her that she comes from 2 strong families who learned to love each other despite their differences. That her grandmother Patricia made terrible mistakes but took responsibility and did the work to change. That her other grandmother, my mother, showed her what unconditional love and support looks like. That her father learned to stand up for what's right even when it's hard. And that her mother refused to be silenced or disrespected, setting an example of strength and dignity. These are the real heirlooms I'm passing down. Not just gold and jewels but lessons forged in fire. The jewelry represents survival, heritage, and the strength of the women who came before. But the story behind the jewelry represents resilience, growth, and the power of choosing healing over bitterness. As I sit here now, hands on my growing belly, I feel at peace. The journey wasn't easy. There were moments I wanted to give up on my marriage, on reconciliation with Patricia, on everything. But I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad Daniel and I fought for our relationship. I'm glad we gave his mother a chance to change while maintaining firm boundaries. I'm glad we went through the pain because it led to genuine transformation. Not every story like mine has a hopeful ending. I'm aware of that. Many people face similar situations where the family member never changes, where the spouse never stands up for them, where relationships shatter beyond repair. If that's your reality, I see you. Your pain is valid. Choosing to walk away from toxic family dynamics is brave and sometimes necessary. There's no shame in protecting your peace and your mental health. But for those like me who have a partner willing to do the work and a family member who eventually takes accountability, there's hope. Change is possible, but it requires consistent effort from everyone involved. It requires therapy, communication, patience, and clear consequences for boundary violations. It requires the person who caused harm to truly understand the impact of their actions and commit to different behavior. And it requires time. Lots of time. 3 years ago, if someone told me that Patricia and I would be close today, I would have laughed bitterly. The wounds were too deep. The betrayal too fresh. But here we are, planning a baby shower together, laughing about nursery colors and building new memories. Still feels surreal sometimes. I won't pretend everything is perfect. Patricia still occasionally says something that rubs me wrong. I still sometimes feel a flash of anger when I remember finding my jewelry in her room. The trauma doesn't just disappear. But we've learned to navigate these moments. We talk things through instead of letting resentment build. We give each other grace while maintaining accountability. We choose connection over conflict most days. Daniel has become the husband I always knew he could be. He checks in regularly about how I'm feeling regarding his mother. He shuts down any boundary crossing immediately. He makes sure I know every single day that I'm his priority. He's also rebuilt his relationship with Patricia in a healthier way. He loves her, but he's not controlled by guilt anymore. He's a son, yes, but he's a husband first. That shift made all the difference. My relationship with my own parents deepened through this experience. Watching them support me unconditionally, fight for me, and love me through the darkest moments showed me what true family looks like. I call my mother every day now. I visit them twice a week. I make sure they know how much I appreciate everything they did for me, from saving for my wedding to standing by me during the jewelry crisis. The immigrant experience of my parents gave me strength I didn't know I had. They came to this country with nothing and built a life through sheer determination. They faced discrimination, financial hardship, and cultural isolation. Compared to what they endured, standing up to Patricia was just a fraction of their courage. I carry their legacy every day. My daughter will carry it too. I think about the 4 generations of women connected to that necklace. My great-grandmother who first wore it in a village in India. My grandmother who protected it during dangerous times. My mother who carried it across oceans to a new land. And now me, preparing to pass it to my daughter. Each woman faced her own battles. Each woman survived. Each woman loved fiercely and held on to what mattered. I'm part of that unbreakable chain. Patricia doesn't fully understand the cultural significance of the jewelry. How could she? She didn't grow up with these traditions. But she understands now that it matters to me, and that's enough. She asks questions. She listens. She shows respect. That's all I ever really wanted from her. Not perfection, just respect. The whole experience also changed how I approach conflict in general. I used to avoid confrontation at all costs. I would rather suffer in silence than risk upsetting someone. But suffering in silence only leads to explosive confrontations later. Now I address issues when they're small. I speak up when something bothers me. I advocate for myself and my needs. It's uncomfortable, but it's healthier. I've also learned to recognize manipulation tactics. Patricia used guilt, health scares, and emotional blackmail to control Daniel. Once I learned to spot these patterns, they lost power. I could calmly call them out instead of getting tangled in emotional chaos. This skill has helped me in all areas of life, from dealing with difficult coworkers to setting boundaries with pushy salespeople. Friends have asked me how I found the strength to confront Patricia and stand firm during those awful months. Honestly, I didn't feel strong at the time. I felt terrified, hurt, and exhausted. But I had no choice. Rolling over and accepting theft and disrespect would have destroyed my self-worth and my marriage. Sometimes strength isn't about feeling brave. It's about doing what's necessary even when you're shaking with fear. I also had support. My family, my friends, my counselor, and eventually Daniel all stood with me. Nobody gets through hard times alone. If you're in a difficult situation with in-laws or family, please reach out for help. Talk to a therapist. Join a support group. Confide in trusted friends. Isolation makes everything worse. Connection gives us strength. One of the most surprising outcomes of this whole situation is that other women started reaching out to me. Friends of friends who heard my story. Co-workers dealing with similar issues. Even strangers who found me through mutual connections. They all had their own versions of difficult in-law relationships. Controlling mothers-in-law. Manipulative fathers-in-law. Spouses who wouldn't set boundaries. Feeling alone and unsure what to do. I listened to their stories and shared what helped me. The validation meant everything to these women. They weren't crazy. They weren't overreacting. Their feelings were valid and their boundaries were reasonable. So many of us are gaslit into thinking we're the problem when we're actually the ones being harmed. Breaking that cycle of blame is crucial. Some of these women are still working through their situations. Few have gone no contact with toxic in-laws. Others are in counseling like I was. One friend recently told me that my story gave her courage to finally stand up to her husband's family after years of mistreatment. Hearing that made everything I went through feel worthwhile. If my pain can help someone else find their voice, then it wasn't wasted. As I prepare for motherhood, I think a lot about what kind of mother-in-law I want to be someday. If my daughter gets married, I want to welcome her partner with open arms. I want to respect their boundaries without them having to fight for it. I want to add to their life, not complicate it. I want to learn from Patricia's mistakes and do better. Patricia herself talks about this now. She openly acknowledges that she was a terrible mother-in-law at first. She warns other parents in her social circles to give their adult children space. She's become an advocate for healthy family boundaries, which is ironic but beautiful. People can learn and grow at any age if they're willing. The baby's nursery is almost done. We painted it a soft yellow with white clouds on the ceiling. My mother embroidered traditional Indian patterns on some of the baby blankets. Patricia refinished an old rocking chair that belonged to Daniel's grandmother. Both families contributed something meaningful. Both families are excited to love this baby together. That unity once seemed impossible. I imagine holding my daughter for the first time and promising her she'll grow up surrounded by love from all sides. She'll learn Hindi songs from my mother and English lullabies from Patricia. She'll celebrate Diwali and Christmas. She'll eat samosas and apple pie. She'll know both her grandmothers tried hard to give her a family without division. That's the greatest gift we can offer her. Of course, I'm also anxious about potential future conflicts. What if Patricia tries to overstep with parenting advice? What if she criticizes how we raise our daughter? What if old patterns resurface? These worries keep me up some nights. But then I remember we have tools now. We have communication skills. We have therapy. We have boundaries. We have Daniel fully on board. We're not the same people we were 3 years ago. I'm also anxious about my daughter potentially facing racism or cultural discrimination. Patricia's "your people" comment revealed how prejudice lurks even in people who think they're open-minded. My daughter will be biracial, belonging to two worlds and possibly feeling like she fully belongs to neither. I want to prepare her for that reality while also celebrating the richness of her mixed heritage. Daniel and I talk about this often. How do we raise a child who's proud of both backgrounds? How do we teach her about racism without making her fearful? How do we honor both cultures without overwhelming her? We don't have all the answers, but we're committed to figuring it out together. We'll make mistakes, but we'll also be intentional and loving. My father cried when we told him we're naming the baby after my grandmother, the original owner of the necklace. It's a beautiful way to honor her memory and keep her spirit alive in the next generation. Patricia supported the name choice enthusiastically, which meant a lot. She understands that respecting my heritage is respecting me and our child. I've been writing letters to my daughter throughout the pregnancy. Letters about my hopes for her, lessons I've learned, and stories about her family. This story about the jewelry will be one of those letters. She needs to know where she comes from, the challenges her family overcame, and the strength that runs through her blood. When I think about handing her that carved wooden box years from now, I imagine telling her that the jewelry inside survived theft and hate but came out more valuable because of the transformation it sparked. Objects are just objects. But the meaning we attach to them, the stories they carry, and the lessons they teach make them priceless. That's true for the jewelry, and it's true for this whole experience. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I never found the jewelry. If Patricia had hidden it better or sold it. Would I have moved on? Would she have escalated? Would our marriage have survived the slow poison of her manipulation? I'm grateful I'll never know. I'm grateful I found the evidence, confronted the problem, and forced everyone to deal with the dysfunction instead of pretending everything was fine. Pretending is exhausting. Honesty, even painful honesty, is freeing. That's another lesson for my daughter. Speak your truth even when your voice shakes. Don't shrink yourself to make others comfortable. Demand respect and give it in return. These principles will serve her well in all her relationships, not just with family but with friends, partners, and colleagues. I'm also teaching her through my actions right now. How I set boundaries with visitors once she's born. How I divide time between grandparents fairly. How I communicate needs clearly. How I don't apologize for taking care of myself and my family. Children learn more from what we do than what we say. I'm modeling healthy relationships for her starting now. Daniel jokes that our daughter is lucky to have such a fighter for a mom. But I don't think of myself as a fighter. I think of myself as someone who refused to be erased. There's a difference. Fighting implies aggression. What I did was stand firm in my worth and my truth. I didn't attack Patricia. I just stopped accepting unacceptable behavior. That's not fighting. That's self-respect. We're planning to take maternity and paternity leave together so we can bond with the baby as a family. I'm grateful for this time. My job approved 3 months of leave and Daniel's company gave him 6 weeks. We'll spend those early days falling in love with our daughter, learning her needs, and adjusting to our new reality. Both grandmothers will visit, but on our schedule, not theirs. Already, Patricia has asked 3 times when she can visit after the birth. Each time, I've gently reminded her that we'll let everyone know when we're ready for visitors. She accepted it without drama, which shows growth. The old Patricia would have shown up uninvited or guilt-tripped Daniel. The new Patricia respects our boundaries even when it's hard for her. I'm curious about what kind of grandmother she'll be. Will she be patient, playful, overprotective? Will she try to enforce outdated parenting advice, or will she trust our choices? Time will tell. But I'm cautiously optimistic based on the work she's done. She's proven she can change. I'm giving her the chance to prove she can maintain that change. My mother will be a traditional Indian grandmother, strict but loving, always feeding everyone too much food and worrying constantly. Patricia will likely be more relaxed, encouraging adventure and independence. My daughter will benefit from both approaches. She'll learn discipline and freedom, tradition and innovation, stability and spontaneity. What a gift to have grandparents who offer different strengths. Sometimes I touch my belly and talk to my daughter. I tell her about her family's complicated journey to healing. I tell her that love isn't always easy, but it's always worth fighting for when it's healthy. I tell her that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, but it does mean releasing bitterness. I tell her that she's already so loved by so many people, including a grandmother who almost destroyed everything but chose redemption instead. That's the ultimate message of this story. Redemption is possible. Change is possible. Healing is possible. But only if everyone involved is willing to do the uncomfortable, humbling work of growth. Patricia had to face her racism, her control issues, and her fear of losing Daniel. Daniel had to face his guilt-driven people-pleasing and choose his marriage. I had to face my conflict avoidance and find my voice. We all had to change. That's why it worked. If even one person in the equation refuses to change, the whole thing falls apart. I've seen this in other families. The mother-in-law who won't go to therapy. The husband who won't set boundaries. The daughter-in-law who won't allow any path to reconciliation. When people are dug into their positions, there's no movement. Only stalemate and bitterness. I'm grateful that wasn't our story. I'm grateful we found a way forward that honors everyone's needs and feelings. I'm grateful my daughter will grow up with a whole family instead of a fractured one. I'm grateful for the pain because it led to growth. I wouldn't choose to go through it again, but I wouldn't erase it either. Made us who we are. As my due date approaches, I feel a strange mixture of emotions. Excitement for the future, peace about the past, and hope for what we're building together. The wedding jewelry sits in that wooden box, polished and ready to be worn again someday. Maybe at our daughter's baptism or naming ceremony. Maybe on her first birthday. Maybe just because. Those pieces represent more than heritage now. They represent survival, resilience, and the power of standing up for what's right. They represent a family that broke and healed. They represent love tested and proven. When I wear them, I feel connected not just to my ancestors but to this moment, this journey, this transformation. In a few weeks, I'll be a mother. Patricia will be a grandmother. My mother will be a grandmother. Daniel will be a father. We'll all step into new roles that will challenge us and change us all over again. But we're ready. We've learned how to communicate, how to set boundaries, how to work through conflict. We've built a foundation strong enough to hold this new life we're bringing into the world. And when my daughter is old enough to understand, when she asks about the jewelry and why it's so special, I'll tell her everything. The theft, the lies, the confrontation, the counseling, the slow rebuilding of trust. I'll tell her about her grandmother Patricia's mistakes and her redemption. I'll tell her about her grandfather Daniel's journey from guilt to strength. I'll tell her about me finding my voice and refusing to be silenced. But most of all, I'll tell her that families are complicated, that people mess up, that love requires work, and that the most beautiful things often come from the most broken places. That's the truth. That's our story. Hit subscribe if you want more real stories.